So we are very happy to be here in the presence of the Supreme Lordships, Shri Jagannath Dev, Shri Baladev, Subhadra Devi, Sudarshanji Maharaj. The Supreme Lord is one. The Supreme Lord has various forms. Here, those forms are kind of multiplied. We have so many places, houses that Lord Jagannath has manifested in, along with his brother and sister Balabhadra and Subhadra. And Sudarshanji is also there. And all of them have come together. It's like a multiverse. We are Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We, as in those of us who have accepted the shelter of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, and who are taking guidance from the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. We follow a particular philosophy in life. This philosophy is called as Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. Vaishnava philosophy is a way of life where one can express one's natural inclination to serve the Supreme Lord in a very unmotivated, unrestricted manner, spontaneously, if possible. That is Vaishnavism. The Supreme Lord is all-pervading, and in Sanskrit, Vasati Sarvatriti Vishnu. One who is all-pervading is also addressed as Lord Vishnu. Since we try to serve the Lord in all aspects of our life, trying to see His presence in every particle of the universe. Hence, we are very happy to be considered as members of the Vaishnava Society. Those who are eager, those who are anxious, happy to see Krishna everywhere, to see Krishna in every aspect of our life, to see Krishna's mercy and His love every single moment of our life in the human form of life. Those are Vaishnavas. Because Sri Krishna is all-pervading. His love is all-pervading. The opportunity to serve Him is all-pervasive. Gaudiya it refers to a lineage which seeks shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya is His name, and He has descended in this world to give it direction, to give His mercy. And He has especially come as the combined form of the Supreme Merciful and His mercy. The combined form of Sri Krishna, who is a Supreme Merciful person, supremely merciful person, and the embodiment of His mercy, as Srimati Radharani. Krishna is sometimes called as Karuna Sindhu. However, the understanding of Krishna as Karuna Sindhu means ocean of mercy. Karuna is the Sanskrit word for mercy. Let us say Karuna is a Sanskrit word and its English counterpart is mercy. Sindhu is again Sanskrit. It means, its meaning is an ocean. Limitless is actually what Sindhu can mean. Limitless. Just as an ocean is limitless. One is not able to ascertain the extent of the ocean. So Sindhu is an ocean. Karuna is mercy, limitless mercy. If we are not able to relate to the idea of an ocean of mercy, limitless mercy could be more helpful, better understanding. Krishna is limitless in his merciful form, or his mercy is limitless because he manifests that mercy as Srimati Radharani. What I'm trying to say is that when Krishna is addressed as Karuna Sindhu, what we are addressing is Krishna with Radharani. Srila Prabhupada, he kind of explained this understanding in very simple words. He said, Radha and Krishna are standing there in the temple, and we go to the temple and we seek their shelter and their blessings. But Krishna is the Supreme Lord. I mean, he is the be all and end all of everything. So he has everything, he knows everything, he is complete in himself. So he may or may not reciprocate with us. This is how Srila Prabhupada explains it. He may not reciprocate with us. However, the idea of mercy is that she is unbiased. And she doesn't have any preferences. Always available. That is what is the idea of mercy. So Srila Prabhupada says, if Radharani, she kind of just nudges Krishna and says, this person is all right. Krishna is okay. I'll accept him. So by the mercy of Radharani, we can become qualified to be accepted as Krishna's servant. Otherwise, it's a tough task. Why? We made it tough. We are like, one day we told Krishna, the story goes like this. One day we are at Krishna and I think I'm better off without you. And Krishna says, all right, take your chances. Yeah, I'm better off without you. So we leave Krishna and come to this material world. And then we find that it's so very difficult. So we go back to Krishna. I want to come back. And Krishna is like, it's easy to go away, difficult to be back. Do you think you're ready for it? Yeah, I'm ready. I want to come back. And then something or the other distracts us in this material universe, and maybe Krishna sometime later. So why is it tough? Why is it difficult? Distractions. We chose willingly. Maybe we were not completely aware, or maybe we were, whatever is the case, we made the choice let me go to the land of distractions. So what do we expect here? It's just going to be so many distractions. It's like, let me go and jump into the ocean. And then hey, ocean, don't make me wet. I just wanted to jump into you. I did not want to get wet. How is that possible? So it becomes difficult, very difficult. So Krishna says, well, you wanted to leave, you want to come back, you want to do everything on your own, so do it. I'm okay with it. No, you don't need my help. You're not sure if you need my help. So Radharani is like, come on, Krishna. I mean, give this person a chance. Come on, just one chance. That is mercy. That is Karuna. She is Radharani. The word, her name itself, the Sanskrit root for that is Aradhana, which basically means that which springs from our heart because of intense attraction. You know, when there's intense attraction, there is no mind functioning anymore. You simply act. That is what intense attraction is about. You simply do it. Like Chappan Bhog today, it could be intensely attractive. So you don't think, you're like, yeah, I mean, today all my restrictions can go to some other place, some other universe. This is so attractive. Basically, you kind of understand that this is all right, this is very good, and I don't need to be logical about it. I don't need to rationalize about it. That is what attraction means. So Aradhana. So if we have a deity or if we have a personality who is suffused with that quality, who's infused with that quality, whose every particle is made up of this quality, every particle of existence is made up of this quality, that intense attraction towards Krishna. That is Srimati Radharani. Hence, when we touch her, it's, you know, we get kind of attractolocated or something like that, not something like electrocuted or something like that. We kind of receive the same energy. So Radha Krishna Nahi Annid, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form. He is like really very, from the logical perspective, just imagine Krishna supremely powerful, Radharani is supremely merciful, they come together, that's explosive. Therefore, we have the Hare Krishna explosion. And devotee in a movement, he wrote a book, Hare Krishna explosion. It's an explosion. Why? Krishna, Radha coming together in the form of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Sri Krishna Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has incarnated in this material universe to give us a chance to participate or to be participating in the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, the Yoga Dharma. The Supreme Lord appeared about 550 years ago, roughly around that time, 540 years ago. At the age of 24, takes sannyas, he goes to Jagannath Puri. In Jagannath Puri, he meets a very, very intense person, like a big-time professor. He's got like so many patents. He is the head of the scientific community, huge scholar. In fact, he writes certificates that helps people be established as knowledgeable persons in the society. And even if you are certified and you haven't received his certification, you are practically not certified. That was how powerful he was. And his name was Sarvabhauma. Sarvabhauma means be all and end all, wholesome, Sarvabhauma. One of Krishna's name is also Sarvabhauma. Everything in existence that is and could be, that is Sarvabhauma. His name was Sarvabhauma. And because he was so good at what he did, he got the title of Bhattacharya, or Bhattacharya, as sometimes he said. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happened to meet him. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya looked at him and he said, he's a very sincere person. Looks very sincere. Quite emotional. Hasn't learned the art of handling his emotions. I will teach him. This had never happened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya ever in his life. He had never experienced being emotionally attached to another person. He never realized that he was getting emotionally attached. He was kind of thinking that this sannyasi, he seems to be very emotional. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come to the temple of Lord Jagannath, and in this incarnation, this was the first time he had come to the temple of Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Puri, and he saw the beautiful deity of Lord Jagannath. He was so eager, he had been waiting forever to come and see the beautiful darshan of Sri Jagannath Swami. And when he saw Sri Jagannath Swami there, Daru Brahma, that Supreme Lord who had appeared in a form of wood, he just went mad. The Radharani component of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you could say like that, was so happy to see Krishna there as Sri Jagannath. So he just collapsed. And all the instruments that were there, the medical facility, whatever they had to monitor one's life force, that all of that flatlined. Flatlined. Sarvabhauma said, these instruments, they are very gross. I have a more subtle understanding. So with his subtle understanding, he understood that this person may have flatlined, but this person is not dead. He says, wow, I've heard about this. This is the first time I'm seeing this being manifested in another person's body. This is worthy of my monitoring. I need to monitor this. So his curiosity was incited. And at the same time, without him being aware, he got emotionally attached to this person. He didn't even know who he was. About Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is said that his form was so attractive that just by seeing him once, people would fall in love with him. There was an incident where someone had heard that there is a sannyasi and people just fall for him. It's like, I don't want to see this sannyasi. I would want to fall for my liquor and my different other habits. I want to keep those things in my life. I don't want to fall for a sannyasi. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his place, he wouldn't look in the direction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was so particular or so fearful that he wouldn't even want to look at the shadow of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was like, no, I don't want to fall for this person. But the story ended as the person did fall for him. He was a washerman. It's like, what I was tasting was broken pieces of glass. Now that I've tasted the beautiful, my eyes have tasted this beautiful vision of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's form. It's like I've received a precious diamond or a precious jewel. So Gauranga Mahaprabhu there in Chaitanya Jagannath Dev's temple. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this sober, intense, fiercely logical, analytical person is like, I need to monitor him. And within his heart, because he had never ever consciously, unconsciously, he had never ever tried to be attached to another person. He couldn't be. His logical mind would not let him do that. And here logic was somehow, Lord Jagannath's temple has open doors. So it kind of went through the doors, not through the windows, but it just went away. He got the young sannyasi, brought him to his house. His other duties, he was a very busy person. He just kind of took leave for the day. It's like, okay, how's this person doing? What is happening to him? He just couldn't think of anything else. Finally, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained consciousness, which was also an interesting experience for him, everything that was happening to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on that particular day was kind of giving him newer and newer jolts of realization. He was like, what is this? What is this? So when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained consciousness only when somebody came, Nityananda Prabhu came and chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in his ears, he said, I've never seen that happen. What is this? What is this? How does this work? And then over a period of few days, he's like, I was so foolish. How did I miss out on this? He was so grateful to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's like, I'm completely sold out to you. You can just make me dance the way you want me to. I'm just your servant, sold out servant. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so happy to see that happen. Now, previously, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very particular. Jagannath Dev is famous for his prasad. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would be very particular. He would be like, no, they wouldn't have watches in those days. He would be like, okay, the sun is right here, and this is how it is placed in the sky. So the muhurta right now is not good. So he had made it very clear to his followers that prasad is very honorable. The muhurta, the time for various activities, are also important. You should never bring me prasad at an improper time. Never do that. So everyone was aware. They're like, okay, what is the time? They would have various ways to measure time. The sand clock and things like that. There are various ways to measure time. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this is the muhurta for him to accept prasad. That is when they'll bring the Jagannath's prasad. And if a Jagannath's prasad was available and the sand clock wasn't working, it was saying that this is not the proper muhurta, they would like, no. So one day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he, after his early morning visit to Lord Jagannath, and every morning he would go to see the morning darshan of Lord Jagannath. The priests would give him remnants of the morning offering. That is called as the Uppala Bhoga. What is it called as? Bhoga is an offering, food offering, and Uppala means that which is done in the morning. So Uppala Bhoga offering. Sometimes it's very nice to know new terms, right? Okay, Uppalabhog, yeah. The next time I'm here at New Badrika Ashram, there'll be devotees like, we are also, partaking of the Uppalabhog offering now. Anyway, so Lord Jagannath's Uppalabhog offering was there. He goes to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house that particular day because of certain reasons. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was sleeping in late. Knock, knock. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya goes, who's there? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, opportunity. No, that is not how it went. So it's knock, knock. And Bhattacharya wakes up and he, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is outside the door. He's with this prasad in his hand, practically dancing with the prasad in his hand. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has woken up and he's not considering whether he has not even looked at the time clock, whether this is the proper muhurta to chant or not chant. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so particular. Even if he had to breathe, he's like, is this time for Anulom or Vilom? That is how particular he was. Breathe in or breathe out. Bhattacharya is out of his bed and he's immediately chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the holy names of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like, he was floating in the sky. He was so happy. And then Bhattacharya opens the door and he says, oh, Mahaprabhu, please come in. He's just woken up from his sleep. Night sleep. He did not where's my floss? Where's my... Please come. Bhattacharya, I have got prasad for you. Bhattacharya said, prasad. He immediately offered obeisances to the prasad, took a small bit and put it in his mouth. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bhattacharya, what are you doing? You haven't even washed your mouth. You've been sleeping the entire time. And now you wake up early in the morning, your mouth is contaminated. You are the Bhattacharya. You are the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. You certify people whether they can take prasad or not, whether the mouth is contaminated enough or it is pure enough or not. You give them certification for that. And you are not even considering whether your mouth is eligible. Is it pure enough to accept and honor this prasad? The world is full of so many rules and eligibilities, and it is necessary. Otherwise, we won't function as a sane society. However, the purpose of all the regulations and rules is meant to be comfortable in life. Just imagine if we did not have rules while driving, it would be so uncomfortable. So rules and regulations are meant to make us comfortable. And why is comfort important? Because when you're comfortable, you're able to love someone. If you're in discomfort, you don't. Love is the last thing on your mind. Sarve vidhi nishedha. All the rules and regulations are meant to serve this one purpose. The purpose is to be comfortable enough to express love. To love the object that should truly be loved. And to receive and to reciprocate with the love that we are receiving. Prema, Krishna Prema. Love of Krishna. For most of us who practice some kind of sadhana, some spiritual practices, like in our ISKCON society, we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The purpose of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so that we can remember Krishna. Sometimes it makes us so uncomfortable. We feel so uncomfortable chanting. We are like, is it done or not? Like, okay, we are either looking at the clock or we are looking at the counter beads. Have I finished the number of rounds that I have to do or not as yet? When I'm going to finish? Because we are not exactly very comfortable with doing that. And then after doing that for years and years and years, sometimes we feel that, hey, where is the love for Krishna? The love for Krishna is still buried under so many layers of discomfort that we are living with. Because if we had found comfort in our practices, we would have loved Krishna. Force doesn't work. Rules and regulations, they have innate force in them. They have this rigidity within it. The purpose of that rigidity, the purpose of those rituals, the purpose of some fixed way of or fixed intent is to be comfortable. And if it is not making us comfortable, either we are not doing it properly or we are practicing something which we are not able to connect with. So let's do it in a very natural, a natural way, or let's focus on why we are doing it. Then the results could be there. We could feel comfortable enough. And then we'll find Krishna, Prema, love of Krishna. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had found that. He woke up. He was chanting Hare Krishna. He was quite an elderly person. No one had seen Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya do that. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we had to chant the Mahamantra, he would do it by noting the exact time, the perfect place, the perfect circumstance. It's like somebody would, if let's say, one of our devotees would meet Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in those days and would say, please chant Hare Krishna. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, yeah, I will. Please, definitely, I will. Thank you very much. But when are you going to do it? At the proper time, the proper muhurta. Once I was talking to a friend of mine. We've been friends for many years. Sometimes we kind of, you kind of just joke about with your friends. Have some fun. So we are role playing. So I would say, okay, I have to focus my mind. I have to be very sincere. I will wake up in the Brahma Muhurta early morning and chant Hare Krishna. Role playing. And he's like, yes, I have been trying to tell you that since a long time. I've been doing it since a decade now, every single day. You should also do it. All right, tomorrow we are going to do it. And then role play. So the next day, that very moment, the next day, it's the next day for us. So we are awake, Brahma Muhurta time, early morning. Brahma Muhurta is supposed to be, according to the Vedic Panchanga, the almanac, it is supposed to be the most powerful moment. In the words of one particular person, a very revered personality, something happens in the universe during the Brahma Muhurta. It's as if a portal opens up. Some portal somewhere. So convinced. If we are getting a good deal for free, why not take it? So Brahma Muhurta, wake up. So woke up at Brahma Muhurta chanting the Mahamantra. So role play, right? Me and my friend. early morning. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Brahma Muhurta. One Muhurta is like 48 minutes. So Brahma Muhurta is for 2 Muhurtas. So it's about an hour and a half. Hour and a half of chanting, whatever, let's say 10 rounds on 108 beats each. On each beat, chanting one complete Mahamantra. So maybe 12 rounds, 14 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever it is. I've done it. And now every day I will be waking up in the Brahma Muhurta and chanting Hare Krishna. And did we know that there are like so many more Muhurtas? 4 Muhurtas make up a Prahara. So one Prahara is roughly about 3 hours. So there are 8 Praharas in a day. So that makes it Ashta Prahar. Ashta Prahariya Leela is what Krishna, every single hour of our human life, there is some activity that Krishna does that they're classified as Ashta Prahariya Leela. So Ashta Prahar means 24 hours of a day, of a solar day. So one Prahar, half a Prahar, 2 Muhurtas, Hare Krishna. How many Muhurtas in a day? If in a Prahar, there are 4 Muhurtas, and there are 8 Praharas in a day. So how many Muhurtas in a day? 32. So me and my friend, we are role playing. Brahma Muhurta, we have done our chanting. We are so happy. The most powerful Muhurta, the most powerful time window of the day. 2 Muhurtas we have spent there. 30 Muhurtas in the day still remain. We hardly care about it. It's like, I'm done. I did 2 Muhurtas, solid, every day. This is called as being rigidly ritualistic. That is how Sarvabhauma was. So we can relate with him if we are doing similarly in our life. There's so many people, so many friends over so many years that, we can relate to these things in our life. Every Sunday, for the past 40 years, every Sunday I have been at the temple. And the rest of the days, no, Sunday you have to be there. The rest of the days of the week, nothing is written about it. Only Sunday, it has been Sunday feast. There's no Monday feast, no Tuesday feast, no Sunday feast is there. So the written law is Sunday feast. This is how the mind typically falls into the trap of rigidity. And when we simply follow rigid rules, or we become the members of the so-called rigid society, which is called as smarta. Smarta means very rigid, which comes from actually smriti, which means what my experience is, or what I accept to be correct of others' experiences, that is very important. So there's no expression of love, because we are not comfortable with the idea that we should be loving Krishna. Intellectually, somehow someone has convinced us that we should love Krishna, because if you don't love Krishna, you are going to suffer. I don't want to suffer. If somebody had told us that even if you don't love Krishna, you won't suffer, everything will be all right, you're going back to Vaikuntha, then to hell with loving Krishna. I only want to love Krishna because I know if I love Krishna, then I get a lot of brownie points. So that is, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is very, very literate, educated, very focused. But typically, all of us could be like little Sarvabhaumas, Anshik Sarvabhaumas, at least in our approach to life. Sarvabhauma, this Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya takes a small morsel, just a little bit, a small, one grain, and first offers respects by touching it to the head, or he must have just offered respect to the Mahaprasad, and he honors it. He puts it on his tongue. Lord Chaitanya says, "Oh Sarvabhauma, what have you done?" And Sarvabhauma says, "My dear Lord, what is it? You have broken the rules. You have broken the rules that you yourself have glorified throughout your life. You have broken that golden rule." And Sarvabhauma says, "Did I really?" Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Well, if you didn't, then how do you justify it?" And Sarvabhauma says, "Shushkam paryushatam vapi nitam vadura deshatah prapti matrena bhoktavyam natrakala vicharana." Shushkam va paryushatam. Even if it has lost its, even if it has decayed, it is useless. And even if many days have passed, because of which it has become spoiled, if it has come from a far off place, which has resulted it in becoming spoiled, prapti matrena bhoktavyam, as soon as we receive it, we should immediately honor it. We should immediately honor prasad. Sometimes, if we are not really internally, we are not really in connect with what we have accepted intellectually, the body may not be able to accept it. Hence, we should always try to be careful that we accept that which is nutritious, which is healthy. However, when it comes to the glory of prasad, the scriptures declare that prasad never becomes spoiled. What is prasad? Prasad is not simply some food preparation. The food preparation is a vehicle. It is just a means. The rice, the dal, the chapati, the pizza is just a vehicle carrying the blessings of Krishna. The blessings of Krishna is also available in the air because we are breathing it every time. This is Krishna's blessings, Krishna's mercy. We will not be able to connect with it because it is subtle. We need something really gross. It's really difficult to, most of you here are, you're all family persons, you have a family. Right. And when I say, what I mean is that you're married, you have a husband or a wife, you have children, parents, and so on and so forth. It's so difficult, even when we are related to each other, it is so difficult to understand how love is subtle unless somebody expresses it. Oh, today was my birthday and you did not say happy birthday. You don't love me. Sometimes that is one of the reasons for divorce. Now, and it could be a good reason. I'm not saying it's wrong, because many times people simply hate each other and they don't want to wish each other, and therefore maybe they go for divorce or whatever it is. They are not comfortable. The law allows it, so it's okay. However, aren't we as members of the family, aren't we supposed to use that opportunity to become comfortable with each other? Isn't that what marriage is about? Isn't that what family is about? That we become close to each other? Or as family, we turn out to be just strangers over years? How does that make sense? Why should it be a family then? So, all right, I'm not deriding the idea that somebody would be very unhappy if that is not happening. However, that is an extreme case where somebody says, we want to separate because this has been happening over years. However, even if one feels that connect with family members, we still expect you have to say through this mouth, with this fleshy tongue, you have to say those words in the language that I understand. I love you. We are not comfortable with subtlety anymore. In fact, we have no idea what subtle existence means. We have no idea. We have gotten so used to things that we've forgotten that we are persons. This chair is not comfortable. The chair is simply meant to help you sit. If it's not comfortable, move to another place. But no, I have to make an issue out of it. Why? Because things are meant to be serving me. I forget that I am meant to exist as a person. Things are just supposed to be facilitating my existence as a person. We make things so important in our life that they become an extension of ourselves. Somebody harms this chair, and if let's say this is chair of Kaushik's house has this chair, this couch, whatever it is. If I just do something to this, Kaushik says, why? My house, my chair. Why are you doing this? The others, all of you, Prabhuji, he's Prabhuji. You should just tolerate. And Kaushik is like, it's not your chair. It's easy for you to say, just tolerate. Things have become an extension of ourselves. We forget that we are a life force. We are supposed to exist. We are not supposed to think that these things are going to make us exist. That is not what we are supposed to do. These things, objects, facilitate living in this world. You know what facilitate means? It means that at the moment, if it is useful, all right. If it is not useful, it's okay, give it up. That is what facilitation is all about. But to have such an understanding, one has to go beyond the gross plane, beyond that which one sees, go to the subtle plane of emotions, understandings, feelings. People have lost that art. We have lost that art. Growing up in India when I was a little child, as an adult now in India, or here, now in the world, traveling over the world, I've seen that the newer generation, the present generation, because they're so used to gadgets, it's like everything at the click of a button. There were days, 20 years ago, this was so clunky, talk, the keyboard. Today, if it's like, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, you're like, okay, I need a new keyboard. In fact, since it is attached to this entire contraption, I need a new laptop. Why? My finger hurts slightly here at this point, exactly 2.5 millimeters from. New thing. That's true. That's how the new generation is. This present generation is. We are living in this present generation. We are also a part of it. What are you a part of? We are part of that society that believes only in what they see, what they touch. That is all that matters to them. And therefore, in this society, we find a lot of people have lost access to that potential, the potency that they have within themselves to feel. You no longer are able to feel. Emotionally, we have lost, there's a disconnect. My grandfather, when I was a little child, his walking stick, I've never seen him shop. Maybe it wasn't available. They did not have the facility. He had that walking stick for years. Years. Today, even if you have a good walking stick, we go to Costco, we find something is cheap. We are like, hey, why not? It's just for $2.49, $2.49. Another walking stick. And there are all this society is there. Oh, Prabhu, oh, Mataji, new walking stick. Oh, you're so fortunate. That's amazing. Upgraded technology. This has so many benefits. It folds up on its own. It understands the terrain. It has GPS on it. It senses your emotions. And accordingly, it either heats up or cools down. These things have made us so captivated that we forget that we exist, others exist. There's no room, no time for emotional exchange. Very little time for that. Today, you go to buy a house in America, they don't give you anything less than two rooms and a hall. Practically, it's quite normal and acceptable to have at least 5 rooms. And what are 5 rooms for? One for the husband, one for the wife. Sometimes maybe they stay together, maybe not, because they have different time zones, I guess, or different work timings. One for the son, one for the daughter, one for the dog. And everyone has a refrigerator. Everyone knows how to operate what is that thing, that a contraption, the microwave. I'm not hungry. I'll eat when I want. So practically, you have to kind of figure out a day. Let us have family time. And the only way we can have a family time is like we take vacation. Otherwise, we are hardworking people. We work so hard. We are simply, all our hard work is meant to realize this world of sight, touch, smell, minus emotions. And how are emotions expressed? A heart's emoticon, a flower emoticon. If the flower is yellow, it's a different emotion. If it is red, it's a different emotion. If it's pink, it's a different emotion. Somebody who doesn't do that sends it to another person. They're like, ah! This is so wrong. How don't they know the rules and laws of emoticons? Subtlety is a lost art, and it's getting really, it's like becoming an extinct understanding of life, including us who are practicing, spiritual practitioners, including us. Now, as you advance spiritually, you feel more for the world around you. That is what spirituality is about, because you see Krishna everywhere. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha me pashyati. Tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, he is never lost to me, nor am I ever lost to him. Krishna speaks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. One of the verses that kind of are not the important verses of Bhagavad Gita, exactly, We've lost that. So when this verse is being spoken by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, what is the intent? The intent is not that we go out looking for prasad that has become spoiled. Like, okay, where are you dumping all your prasad? I'm going to take that. Why? Because this verse, I saw that Prabhu mentioned this verse. Shushkam Parishitam Vapi Nitam Va Dura Deshata. It has become spoiled. There is fungus growing in it. It is a bad smell. Let me eat it. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a saint, Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das at that point of time. Jagannath's Prasad, when it would become spoiled, in those days, the place where that was considered to be the Nirmalaya for Prasad, the food preparation, which is Prasad in the form of food, that Prasad. They would bring that and put it there. This was at the north gate. All temples, traditional temples, would have 4 gates. So people could approach the temple in all directions. So the north gate. Dasa Goswami, and there, cows, that which is maybe not consumable by humans, somehow cattle can still consume it. It's not as bad for them. It's not as unhealthy for them. Their metabolism, the way they digest things is a little different. So the cows would eat that. And when it would become too spoiled for the cows, they would also not eat it. Really gone bad, rotten. Das Goswami would come. He would pick all those grains of rice and that would be his food. But he would wash it. He would break open the grains of rice and take the inner part. He was careful to eat that which would be healthy. People don't realize this. We kind of become unnaturally sentimental. There's some natural sentiment, good sentiment, and there is imagined sentiment. Oh, I read this verse, or this Prabhu came there and sitting on this big couch, he gave this really intense presentation, and now I'm convinced Prasad spoiled. If I eat that, that is advancement. So let's go after spoiled Prasad now. That is not the intent. That is not what is being said here. What is being said is, even if Prasad is spoiled, you could still honor it by taking a bit. That is how you show honor, respect. It's not necessary that you consume an entire handful of it. Well, if you feel that this is all right, Krishna will protect me, and you have so much faith in Krishna, do it. And after that, if you don't fall sick, it is good. If you fall sick, don't blame Krishna for it. But honoring Prasad is important. And how do you honor a person? How do we offer respects to each other? There are certain ways, there are certain practices that we have. We fold our hands in front of them, or we touch their feet, or we bow down in front of them. These are some acceptable forms of showing respect. Now let's suppose we do that externally, but internally we harbor really negative emotions for the person in front of us. It spoils our constitution. We get sick. So why not do it in a way that is helpful for us, that is healthy for us? So he said that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so happy, so happy. He said, Shushka means that which does not have any nutrition in it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, today Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a Shushka, who practically did not have any vitality because of his always constant logical way and his rigid way of doing things and not accepting things. Today, his heart has started functioning. Again, his heart is like alive. His emotions are alive. This is huge. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt that this was huge. He was like, my coming to this world has been fulfilled because Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya started appreciating Prasad. What did he do? As soon as he saw Prasad, he honored it. How did he honor it? by offering respects to it and taking one morsel. And after that, he took whatever else was there, he kept it. Most probably that is what he must have done. He must have taken his bath, brushed his teeth, he must have really cleansed himself, and then partaken of the rest of the prasad. Immediately honoring that prasad shows how much you feel indebted to that which you are receiving, how grateful you feel to that which you are receiving. So Chappan Bhog, this festival that we are having here, is to express our gratitude. How fortunate we are. How fortunate we are that we can honor the prasad of Lord Jagannath. He appeared in Jagannath Puri and he said many centuries ago, like lifetimes, kalpas ago, he said, I'll appear in Jagannath Puri and I will accept all the food offerings that people give me throughout the day, and it will be available as prasad for all the living entities. Huge volumes of prasad. This was like a big breakthrough for the conditioned souls. You're getting the Lord's prasad. However, for that you have to go to Jagannath Puri. How grateful we are that we have this functional brain, we have a functional memory, we have functional senses, and with those senses, we're able to serve Lord Jagannath right here in Erie. We are able to come and see the Lord being served. This is a moment of expressing gratitude. And obviously, the best way to express gratitude is as soon as the prasadam table is laid, take your pick. But as I said, that is how the new generation thinks. Because for us, to make someone a friend, all we have to do is, can I have your number, please? And they're like, yeah, okay, your name. And to defriend one, all you have to do is delete. Then I don't have a number. Now there's no way to contact that person. Deleted that person out of it. My grandfather, he did not have that option. Growing up, and I feel that they were really fortunate that they did not have that option. They had to live with the connections that they made. They could not just delete them. They understood to live in the world of subtleties. They understood what it means to be a little adjusting in life, to be a little more flexible, to give some, take some. So it is important that we try to at least be aware that the purpose is to express love. Even when we serve Lord Jagannath, today's festival is Chappan Bhog festival. The purpose is to express love. And Jagannath's Mahaprasad is meant for all the living entities so that they become fortunate. So maybe we could just take this Mahaprasad and see, whenever it's possible, we could go out for food for life. That would be a nice way to do Chappan Bhog festival. And yeah, every day for those who have Lord Jagannath at their homes, every day they are getting Lord Jagannath's prasad. And we can, Chappan Bhog can be done in, Chappan basically means 56. Chappan is the numerical value in certain societies, comparable to what we say 56 in English. So sometimes people feel that 56 means there have to be 56 cups. Chappan Bhog. We have only 55. Where is one more? It's all right. It's good. At least we feel that there should be, at least we are trying to be a little responsible. Every day could be a Chappan Bhog. Why? Let's suppose we are eating rice. You can pick up each grain and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 56 grains of rice we have offered in a plate to Lord Jagannath. This is Chappan Bhog. Because after all, Chappan Bhog for most of us may be only the number 56. I made 56 offerings. So there is 1 sabji, 2 sabjis, 3 sabjis, 1 salad, 2 salad, 3 salad, 56 items. So every day we could do that. We could just take 1 grain of rice, put it in one separate cup, a small cup, make 56 cups, and every day give it to Lord Jagannath. And that is what we are doing actually. When we put a bowl of rice, or let's say, rice, dal, chapati, pizza, whatever, bread, whatever we are making, we are offering. It's actually, if we just want to make it very numerical, it could be 56 number. The number 56 is there. So what is Chappan Bhog? For us, as Srila Prabhupada taught us, Chappan Bhog is a way to let people, or to understand why Lord Jagannath appeared in this world. One of these reasons, the Chappan Bhog offering, is that he has appeared to distribute prasad to all living entities. So if possible, if it is practical, maybe we do the festival and we take the entire prasad. After we have distributed it to our friends who have come for the festival, we take that and do food for life. Now that would be some good exercise, isn't it? And all these great saintly personalities, that is their vision, including our Srila Prabhupada. His vision was that prasad, anyone who comes to a temple should get prasad. And anyone who doesn't come to a temple, we go them and give them prasad. And if we are not able to do that, at least we should be grateful that, hey Krishna, you have given us this opportunity to participate in your eternal pastime of how you distribute your mercy in the form of prasad. That would make it would spiritualize it on the subtle level also, subtly on the emotional plane. Even our emotions could be spiritualized. Externally, we are spiritualizing it by doing the rituals, and internally, we are trying to liberate our consciousness from all the idea of I am mine. I made this preparation. This is mine. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.